Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. We're at Gunsite, the famous firearms training academy, started by Colonel Jeff Cooper. Lots of history here, lots of stuff going on. We'll talk about a number of different aspects of that and what is taught, what you could learn, but also kind of a history of where all this came from. Because no matter what people are teaching in terms of firearms training, of self-defense, use of firearms, they may not know it. In fact, they may not even want to acknowledge it. But it all started really with what's called the modern technique of the pistol, and it started with Colonel Jeff Cooper. It started right here at Gunsite. If you want to check it out while we're doing this, gunsite.com. It's Gunsite.com. We're joined right now by the CEO of Gunsite, Ken Cooper. I'm trying to make you one of the Cooper family here. Ken Cambell.
Right church, wrong pew, Tom.
I was just going to say, in a way, you kind of are part of the Cooper family when I think about it.
Well, that's a very kind thought in there, and certainly the Cooper family is a big part of the Gunsite family and the Gunsite life here.
Right, and still is. You got the sconce now getting set up, Colonel Cooper's home, really being set up as a museum for people to come into.
It is. The Coopers lived here in perpetuity, and then when Mrs. Cooper passed away a couple of years ago, we then became the place that housed all of the memorabilia of the Jeff Cooper Legacy Foundation. Jeff's guns, his knives, his holsters, his animal trophies, and so on. And we talked about doing different things with the sconce, make it the office, make it different things. But we thought, no, this is appropriate for it to be a museum.
Right.
So that's what it is. And we've just been spending, as a matter of fact, this last couple of weeks doing some renovations there.
I was just in there. Boy, it's all painted.
It is.
It looks clean and fresh. Yeah. And you're able to put everything right back on the walls where they were.
Everything except the big screen TV we added, because a few years ago, we mic'd Mrs. Cooper up with a professional video team,
right,
and her giving her spiel on the history of Gunsite. We recorded that.
Nice.
And it didn't do her justice on a little TV.
Okay.
So we put that big screen up there, and now we're editing it. The video's great, except it's 25 minutes long.
Oh, a little long. Okay.
Yeah, so we're having it edited back, and so we'll be able. So the 250 students, when they go over for tea, lemonade, and brownies, tradition here.
It's a tradition, yeah.
With Lindy and Christy, two of the daughters, they come out for that. We'll also be able to experience Mrs. Cooper.
It occurs to me there are a ton of people out there who don't know the legacy of Colonel Cooper, or even people who are teaching quasi versions of the modern technique that almost want to poo-poo what he did, not understanding. If you would explain what went before, where we were with everything from the FBI crouch to what Colonel Cooper and his leather slap buddies created.
Yeah, things have grown, evolved,
right,
in these decades. And back in the day, it was one-handed shooting. You'd crouch, or you'd point shoot, or you'd turn sideways to the target and shoot with your hand in your left hand in your back pocket.
And not using the sights.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And it was not really successful gunfighting. We can teach you how to point shoot and so on. But if you learn to use the sights, gosh, are you accurate?
Well, the weird part was you see those pictures of those guys doing that FBI crouch, and you think, well, what were they thinking? And they said, well, number one says it makes you a smaller target. And number two, if you get hit, maybe you won't fall over. I'm thinking, how about just shooting the guy before he shoots you?
Getting hits on the first round.
Yeah,
right?
Go ahead, just get hits on the first round.
Yeah.
And there was such a break from what was being taught in all law enforcement. And we probably ought to explain, you are a career law enforcement officer, sheriff for a gazillion years.
I was 35 years on a sheriff's office and spent 8 as the sheriff.
Yeah. So what went before and then what happened afterwards with these guys basically just in competition.
Right. Back in Big Bear Lake, that's where the Coopers lived in California, he started hosting these unrestricted competitions. And that's where the Jack Weavers and the Thel Reeds and so on, some of these very important people in our history of fighting with guns, pistols, came into play. And Colonel Cooper had a background in education, ROTC, the Marine Corps. He worked for the OSS, precursor to the CIA. He went to Quantico and studied shooting as part of his assignment with the military. So he would watch these competitions and he would see who was winning and try to put some science behind it.
Without any restrictions on what they brought or what they used.
Correct.
Just
That's correct.
Wide open. Let's find out what works.
One hand, two hand. They called it the leather slap.
Right.
So this went on for years, and that's where Jack Weaver was identified, and he was very successful, and he was using the two-handed approach, the sights, and gosh, he was doing that and winning. So even in my prior life, we call that a clue.
Yeah. Yeah. Say, oh, wait, he's doing something different and beating everyone else. We might want to pay attention to this.
So the Coopers came out here in about 75 doing their research, and Gunsite opened in 76, and we've been going strong ever since. So 46-plus years. To our knowledge, we're the world's oldest and largest privately owned shooting firearms training academy.
And as good as what Colonel Cooper developed in the modern technique of the pistol, that's what it's called, and as revolutionary as that was, nothing stays the same and nothing is static. And there are people who say, well, I've seen all that Jack Weaver stuff, and I don't want to be forced to do that. You don't do that anymore.
No, we hear it on the internet. We're the Southwest Dinosaur League. We take rebar and drive it into your feet to make you stand in what is a Weaver stance. We only train 1911 pistols. Oddly enough, most of those people have never been here.
Yeah.
We teach a modern fighting stance. The modern technique has evolved over 46 years. You and I can both name different schools that once the primary instructor left, so did the school. That's not what Jeff Cooper developed. He developed a modern technique so it could evolve and stay cutting edge. Some of the shooting we teach is with strong foot forward. It's not with support foot forward. Back in 2011, we hosted Colt for the 100th anniversary of the 1911 pistol. That same year,
I was here for that shoot.
We hosted 3 of the 25th anniversary of the Glock pistol courses here too, at the request of Glock. So whatever we aren't going to force you into a stance that doesn't work. We aren't going to force you into a gun that doesn't work for you. We're going to teach you to fight with the weapon system you bring.
It's kind of key is it's all about what works. And what works for one person is not the same as what works for another person, even two people standing on the line next to each other, whether it's different guns, maybe a slightly different technique. It's where the instructor comes up and says, if you just change this one little thing here, and look, you look at it, you got people with huge hands, you got people with little bitty hands, you got people who are strong, people who are not strong, and they're all trying to learn how to use a pistol to save their lives and to take care of their family.
We don't know how they've been bent and broken over the years. We don't know what their body will let them do, whether they were born with it or whether it's something as a result of them, an issue with them.
Sure.
So we work with that and make that work with you, for you, in every way we can.
I was just telling you, there's a big shoot 'em up in Sacramento this morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning. It looks like maybe 10 more people killed, and a bunch of others shot. It was like this big rough house. You can see the video, people just all balled up, coming out of the bars and everything. And of course, no surprise, Gavin Newsom, the governor, says, well, it's a gun problem, right? We've got to do something about guns. You're going, wait a minute. I thought California was kind of the utopia where we have like every kind of gun control law imaginable, and none of it's working.
Right, and the bad guns aren't there. And let me go back to being sheriff, and I'd say this to kids when I talk to them. Nothing good happens after midnight. I worked nights for a lot of my career.
Yeah.
Nothing good happens after midnight. Or John Farnham, good friend of mine, yours.
Sure.
Let's see, don't go to stupid places and do stupid things with stupid people.
Yes, that helps. And the whole deal of when you get into this, you may not be aware, but if you get good training, you're aware. When you get your carry permit, when you get training, when you start carrying a gun, it doesn't mean that you now can go to bad places. You actually, with good training, you become more aware of why you want to stay away from bad places. Yeah,
I'll tell you a really quick good story.
Sure.
My father-in-law, great guy, he's passed away, but we hunted together, we shot together, we did firearms training courses. He and my mother-in-law were going to a shopping mall one time, and he'd always carried, and again, pretty well trained, proficient with a gun, pulls in, goes to get her out of the car, says stop, says Judy, get back in the car right now. She does. They get in the car and they leave. He saw, situational awareness down the way, 2 guys arguing, one of them pulling out a shotgun.
Oh, geez.
So, but again, he chose wisely. I can deal with this. I'm a Gunsite grad. It was, let's go.
Yeah, Steve Tarani, instructor here.
Yeah.
He uses the example. It says, if you have to go to guns, you failed. Because he said it's like going to the lifeboat in the Titanic. I always love this analogy. He says, first you got to know there are icebergs, then you got to look for icebergs, and then you got to see the iceberg, and then you got to avoid the iceberg. And if you failed at all those, you'll probably run into the iceberg.
Yeah.
But you had a lot of opportunities to not run into the iceberg.
Yep.
So there's that. During the break, we were talking about guns. First question I always get when people decide they're going to get a gun for self-protection is, what gun should I buy? And it's a difficult question to answer. And usually you want to say, how about don't buy a gun, go get some training so you learn. But you have a really interesting way of doing it. And I've recommended to people, look, get an instructor and rent some guns.
Yep.
You guys have got the perfect setup here.
We'll have folks call, and they'll say, this is my first, I've never carried a gun before. I've never owned a gun before. It's time now for me to learn. Great. Mm-hmm. Jeff Cooper, just because you own a piano doesn't make you a musician.
Okay.
So let's say, what gun do I buy to bring? And what we'll suggest is sign up for the 250 pistol class and rent a gun from us. You rent the gun, the magazines, the magazine pouches, and the holster. And I think it's about $150 a week. I don't remember, but
That's
regardless,
pretty cheap.
It is, and that way, if the M&P doesn't fit your hand, we'll work with a SIG 320, or
you'll actually switch out the gun.
We will.
To use.
Right. We will. Now, I don't want you to shoot one gun Monday, one gun Tuesday, one gun, but we'll find one that works for you. And then by the end of the week, you're an informed consumer, and when you walk into the local gun shop, you're not. They're great folks at gun shops. Some of them
are less informed than others. How's that?
Right, they are, and so their heart may not be in the right place.
Well, and they tend to hand a woman a snub-nosed 38.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going, that's a great gun for some things, but even difficult for experts to shoot well.
So we suggest they rent from us, and that usually works out really well. We also run into an issue where people will say, well, you don't suggest, you hardly don't want us to bring a SIG 365 or a Smith & Wesson Shield to the 250 pistol class. We don't. You're shooting 1,000 rounds in 5 days. A subcompact is a great gun to carry and shoot a little bit.
What do you think you and I are carrying right now?
I've got a SIG 365 on, and so do you.
Yes, we do.
I've been out here working on a house construction project this morning. It's just convenient as can be.
Yep.
And I'm not going to stand down range and make faces at somebody with a knife. I'm a 45 guy.
But you're also not going to take a 5-day shooting class with that same gun.
I am not. So we strongly suggest, and people push back, saying, oh, you're just trying to sell me another gun. No, I'm not. I'm trying to sell you the optimal training. And if you take the class with a full size or a mid-size, what you're going to take away from there applies to the subcompacts, but your hand's not going to hurt. You don't have a real short sight radius. You aren't moving the muzzle around dangerously to the left or right as you're trying to manipulate the gun. It just
makes it easier, but more than that, you are going to absorb more training if you're not having to fight the gun.
Right. If you're having fun, your learning curve rockets. And we want you to have the show with dinner here at Gunsite. And so you have fun and you do learn more. So when we suggest that, it's not because we're trying to sell you something. We're just trying to optimize your training that you've paid for.
You do offer training with small guns. You have those classes, but not as the first class.
No, we want you to, the 250 pistol class, they're numbered like college courses.
Okay.
It is the gateway. And that's the prerequisite for almost everything else. But we have tactical concealed carry pistol. And that's the SIG 365, the shields, the mid-size, that we're carrying concealed. Right. We also have what's called pocket pistol. And that's for the J-frames and the small ones that we carry in pocket holsters.
Gotcha.
But you don't want to learn with that. You want to enhance your training with that.
What are you seeing? And they say we've got 10 or 12 million first-time gun buyers in the last 2 years. Are you seeing some of that here?
Oh, my gosh, are we? Used to be we'd see 1 or 2 people in a 24-person 250 pistol class that were really inexperienced. Now we're seeing 6, to the point that we're almost ready to add what we call Day Zero, which is a Sunday class preceding 250, so that this is a muzzle, this is a trigger. This is the first time they fire on a firing line with other shooters.
People who have never handled a gun, not bringing anything to it. And they can be overwhelmed when they jump right into a 250 class.
They sure can. So this Day Zero will help them get over that edge. So on Monday morning, when we do some of the same things, but at a faster pace, it's not as overwhelming to them, and they're much more comfortable.
Okay, I know you, and I know when some of these folks show up, you're having the conversation with them because you're curious. You're asking them, why are you here?
Right.
What happened? Did something happen? What are you hearing from people who have decided in the last couple of years to buy their first gun? Because that's a big leap.
Oh, it is. They're more liberal-minded folks.
Okay.
And they've decided that whether it's riots and violence, whether it's the change they've seen in the world, but they're recognizing I need to be able to take care of myself and my family. Mm-hmm. The thing I say is, you're the first responder. In my prior life, I wasn't the first responder. I was a second responder.
Yeah.
You were there first.
Whatever's happened, I mean, generally speaking, it probably was pretty rare for you to be able to roll up and stop it.
Correct.
In the middle of stuff.
Right. That was a good day when you could do that.
Yeah.
But usually it's the citizen is that first responder. So these people are recognizing the world's not what we thought it once was, and it's time for us to learn the right way to protect ourselves and our family. And that's an opportunity for us pro-gun folks.
Mm-hmm.
The term I use is to bring them from the dark side, right? Go back to Star Wars analogy. To get them to realize, thank goodness, we do have the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Second Amendment so that I can protect myself.
And invite people to go out shooting, but don't...
Oh, don't do the 44 Magnum, the 12-gauge
Well, and also,
slug.
You don't want to do the whole lecture on gun rights to them. Let them come to that.
Let them have fun. And realize, gosh, this is hand-eye coordination. It's fun. Let me just tell you a quick story about saying the Pledge of Allegiance here. Mm-hmm. We start every class like that. A year or two ago, about a year ago, on Wednesday, a lady came to me and said it was so emotional for me when I said the Pledge of Allegiance Monday morning. And I said, why is that? It's only the second time since I got my U.S. citizenship I've done that publicly. Wow. And how wonderful, it makes the hair stand up in my arms right now, how wonderful that was. And then she went down and exercised one of her greatest unalienable rights with the Second Amendment.
There you go.
That's what Gunsite does.
That's pretty terrific. You know, there's a lot of different people doing a lot of training right now, a lot of places people can go, and there's some really good ones.
There are.
I mean, there really are. I mean, we work a good bit with the SIG Academy. It's like, I tell people, look, if you're East Coast.
Right. They're friends of ours. We're training partners. They come out here.
I was going to say, they come out here.
They do.
You know? And
we're invited to go there.
Speaking of that, there are a lot of people who have become trainers, and they're teaching this stuff. One of the things I've always told people, look, if you're a trainer, you need to keep your education going. You might come out to Gunsite, you might go to SIG Academy, but go somewhere where you have people who are really professional, long-time, decades-long trainers, and see how they're teaching.
Just be careful. Vet your instructors.
Okay.
Vet your instructors so you know who they are and what they are, not some flash in the pan. I'll give you an example. Dave Spaulding is a longtime old friend of mine.
Saw Dave on Friday out
Right, because Dave came out and took a 250 pistol class.
This is a guy who could teach any class here.
Anything at all. He really could, but you never get too much of the basics. I took one of Dave's classes down in Phoenix a year or two ago.
Great instructor.
Gabe White, I went to one of his classes. I went a couple of years ago. I went to Tom Givens a year or so ago.
Right.
I got to go someplace else sometimes with people that I respect.
Yeah, because otherwise you could get that incestuous thing going on.
I need somebody to cut a switch off the juniper tree and get me on the back of the calves to say, what are you doing here?
Or as Dave said, I was shooting with him several years ago, Dave Spaulding, he says, just ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is this the best way to do it? Is there a better way to do it?
Yep.
And you guys do that. I just want to recommend to people, if they take a look at the gunsite.com website. Also, if they want to go on the website, they can request. Jane Ann had a whole stack of calendars here.
Yep.
I always get the Gunsite calendar. Very good. We'll be breaking some news from Gunsite about a new person coming in. We'll do that later when you're off, but I appreciate your time.
All right.
We never have enough time, Ken.
No, we don't. Hey, I got one thing here for you, though.
Okay.
2022 challenge coin, and what I close everything with here on our social media.
Yep.
When are you coming to Gunsite?
Ken Cambell, thank you so much. Thanks for hosting us out here.
Oh, love to have you, Tom.
All righty. You take care.